My daughter sneered at me and said, "Don't expect a single dime of Mom's 56 million. She was so sure she'd be the one inheriting everything, smiling like the victory was already hers. But when the lawyer finally read the will, her face went pale the second she heard my name. Before we go any further, if my story has found you, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to see just how far my words can travel. The crash of ceramic hitting the kitchen floor snapped me out of my quiet morning. Coffee spread across the white tiles, dark and messy, like it didn't belong there. My favorite mug lay in pieces, and before I could even clean it up, the phone rang with that urgent tone that cuts through your thoughts. "Daniel Walker," I answered, pressing the cold phone to my ear, already feeling something was wrong. Calls like that don't come at 8:30 on a Thursday unless it's bad news. "Mr. Walker, this is Richard Dawson from Dawson, Lee and Associates. I represent your former wife, Olivia Martinez Walker." His voice had that polished, careful sound lawyers use when they're about to deliver a blow. "I'm afraid I have some sad news. Olivia passed away 3 days ago. Sudden cardiac arrest." The words landed like a punch. Dead. Olivia was dead. I gripped the marble counter until my knuckles went white. Sunlight poured into my small Manhattan apartment, too bright, too normal for a world without her. "No, that can't be right," I said, my voice sounding far away. "She was only 50. She was always so healthy." "I understand this is a shock," he said gently. "The family had a private service yesterday. But there's another matter. Olivia left a detailed will, and you're named in it. The reading is tomorrow at 2, and your presence is specifically requested." When I hung up, I just sat there, coffee dripping from the counter, marking the moments in a morning that had suddenly gone wrong. My hands moved without thinking, pulling an old leather photo album from the dusty shelf in the living room. On the first page, there she was. Olivia at 21, laughing at something I'd said, her dark hair catching sunlight on the University of Chicago campus. She was wearing a simple sweater and jeans, an economics textbook tucked under one arm, looking at me like I was the most interesting person in the world. I traced the edges of the photo, remembering the first time I'd worked up the nerve to talk to her. She'd been in the library, surrounded by intimidating stacks of books, highlighter moving across the page like she owned the place. Olivia Martinez, smart, driven, completely out of my league. Professors called on her constantly, other students begged for her notes, and she moved with this quiet confidence that made my own business administration major feel small. I'd stood there, clutching my failing midterm like proof of my hopelessness, and asked, "Could you help me understand supply and demand curves? I'm lost." She looked up, and I almost lost my courage. Her warm brown eyes softened, and a hint of a smile appeared. "Sure," she said, "but only if you buy me coffee afterward. Good tutoring needs caffeine." That first coffee turned into a 4-hour conversation. We sat in the corner of the campus cafe, barely touching the books, trading dreams instead. Olivia wanted to transform the business world with technology. This was 1995, when the internet was still a mystery to most. "I want to build something that changes how people work together," she told me, eyes shining. "Software that makes companies smarter, more human." My dreams were simpler: steady job, maybe running a small business, definitely marriage and kids. Compared to hers, they felt small, but she listened like they mattered just as much. "You'd make an amazing manager," she once told me, "because you actually listen to people. You'd be surprised how rare that is." That spring, we were inseparable. Study sessions turned into long walks across campus, her talking through her newest business schemes while I gently pointed out the practical problems she hadn't considered. We balanced each other, her wild ambition anchored by my steady, grounded way of thinking. Our first kiss happened under blooming cherry trees outside the student center. She'd been telling me about her internship interview, but I'd stopped hearing her words, too distracted by the way the light caught in her hair. "Are you even listening?" she laughed. "Always," I whispered, and then somehow we were kissing. Soft at first, then deeper, as months of quiet attraction finally spilled over. By senior year, we were making real plans. Olivia's big ideas had turned into solid business proposals, complete with research and financial projections. She'd start her own company. I'd work a steady job to keep us secure. "We'll be a team," she said one evening as we walked hand in hand through Lincoln Park. "Your practical mind keeps me from flying off the rails, and my ambition pushes you to dream bigger." Graduation day was warm and bright. As we posed for pictures in our caps and gowns, I knew without a doubt she was my future. That night, in the same campus cafe where we'd had our first coffee, I dropped to one knee with my grandmother's simple gold ring. "Olivia Martinez, you've made me braver, smarter, and happier than I ever thought I could be," I said, my voice shaking. "Will you marry me?" Her "yes" came instantly, with tears that made her eyes shine. We were married 6 months later in her parents' backyard, surrounded by family and close friends. Small vows. Small reception. Big dreams. We thought we had it figured out. Our first home was a modest 2-story in Maplewood, with a little garden and plenty of room for the family we planned to have. Olivia insisted on a corner office for her business plans. I claimed the basement for my furniture projects. Those early months felt magical. We'd wake up together, drink coffee while flipping through different sections of the paper, then head to our jobs. Olivia to her marketing role at a tech company, me to my assistant manager position at a regional logistics firm. Evenings were ours. She'd cover the kitchen table with sketches of software ideas while I cooked, tossing out suggestions. One night while stirring pasta sauce, I said, "What if your efficiency software could integrate with payroll systems? Small businesses would love that." She lit up. "Daniel, that's brilliant." She kissed me, grabbed her pen, and started scribbling furiously. "You always see the practical side I miss." When Olivia found out she was pregnant in early 1999, we were over the moon. We painted the spare room a soft yellow, deciding to be surprised about the baby's gender. She worked right up until her due date, determined to launch her company's beta before motherhood began. Sophie was born on a crisp October morning after 12 hours of labor that left Olivia exhausted but glowing. She was perfect. Tiny fists, dark hair like her mom's, and a cry that filled the whole maternity ward. "She's going to change the world," Olivia whispered, cradling her. "Just like her mother," I said, brushing her damp hair back. Parenthood was hard, but it made us stronger. We found a rhythm. I handled night feedings so Olivia could rest before long coding days. She'd take over when I got home, giving me time with Sophie while she debugged. Her idea had grown into something ahead of its time: cloud-based project management software for small businesses to coordinate remote teams. Back then, working from home was rare, but Olivia saw the future. "The internet is going to change everything," she'd tell investors late at night. "Distance won't matter. We'll be able to find the best people anywhere in the world." I believed her completely. While she pitched and built, I kept the bills paid, scheduled her meetings, and gave her the stability to keep creating. We were a perfect match, her innovation and my grounded support. Weekend mornings were our sanctuary. Olivia would sit in the rocking chair I'd built, nursing Sophie in the warm light streaming through the bedroom windows. I'd bring her coffee and fresh fruit, and we'd dream together: the bigger house we'd buy when her company took off, the vacations we'd take, the second child we wanted. "I want Sophie to grow up knowing that dreams come true through hard work, and through standing by each other," Olivia told me one quiet Sunday morning, our daughter sleeping in her arms. "She should believe anything is possible when people really support one another." By Sophie's first birthday, Olivia's company had landed its first round of funding and hired 2 employees. She turned our garage into a full-blown office, with rows of computers and a giant whiteboard covered in timelines. "We're really doing this," she said one evening, showing me the quarterly revenue report. "It's actually working." I wrapped my arms around her, breathing in that familiar scent of her shampoo, proud of the life we were building. Olivia was chasing her big dreams, but she was still a devoted wife and mother. I kept the household steady with my income and constant support. Sophie was healthy, happy, and surrounded by love. We had no idea how fast it could all change. 8 years later, the world felt like it was falling apart. The news hummed in the background about bank failures and market collapse, while Olivia sat frozen at her laptop, coffee untouched, hands trembling. 7% of our clients just cancelled, she whispered. And the funding we were counting on, it's gone. The 2008 financial crash hit us like a wrecking ball. Her company had grown to 12 employees, but now it was on the edge of bankruptcy. Overnight, our comfortable life turned into a fight to keep the lights on. I lost the executive job I'd had for 6 years and took whatever work I could find. Construction at dawn, restaurant kitchen shifts on weekends, warehouse work late into the night. 12-hour days left me sore and exhausted, but we needed every dollar. Olivia stopped coming home for dinner. She lived in her office, as if working 20 hours straight could save the business she'd poured herself into. When I brought her sandwiches, she'd be surrounded by empty energy drink cans, papers everywhere, eyes red from staring at the screen. "You need to eat something," I'd say, setting food beside her keyboard. "I can't stop now," she'd snap. "Every minute I'm not working, we're losing money." Sophie was 9 then, and most afternoons she stayed with neighbors because neither of us was home. The babysitter became more of a parent than we were, helping with homework, making her dinner, tucking her into bed while Olivia and I scrambled to put out financial fires. One rare night, all 3 of us sat down for dinner. The tension broke over something small, Sophie asking why we never went to the movies anymore. "Because movies cost money we don't have," I said. Olivia slammed her fork down so hard the plates rattled. "Everything costs money. Don't you understand your dad and I are working ourselves to death to keep this house?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears. She didn't understand the economy, but she felt the fear. I reached for Olivia's hand, but she pulled away. "Don't," she said coldly. "I have 3 investor calls tonight." That night, after Olivia locked herself in her office and Sophie cried herself to sleep, I sat in the dark living room, surrounded by the ghosts of better times, expensive furniture from our good years, framed photos of smiling faces, dreams we'd once planned for growing old together. By 2010, we'd sold Olivia's engagement ring, my motorcycle, and most of our furniture. The house felt hollow. Her company scraped through, but our marriage didn't. 2 years of survival mode had turned us into strangers sharing a roof. She worked until 3 a.m., slept until noon. I worked my day job, then headed to the restaurant at night. We passed each other in the hallway like polite roommates. Conversations were about Sophie's schedule and the bills, nothing else. The truth came out by accident in March 2012. Sophie was at a friend's house, and Olivia was in the shower. I needed our insurance info, so I opened her laptop, and her email was still up. Right there at the top was a message from Michael Lee, her business partner. My stomach dropped. "Last night was perfect, Bella. I can't stop thinking about your laugh. The way you looked at me. I love you." My hands shook as I scrolled, reading months of messages about stolen lunches, late-night talks in her office, feelings they'd tried to resist. It had gone beyond emotional. I was sure it had started during the worst of the crash, when I was gone 80 hours a week and she'd found someone who understood her professional battles. "What are you doing on my computer?" Olivia's voice cut through the air, sharp and panicked. I turned slowly, the laptop screen still lit with proof of what she'd been hiding. "Who's Michael, and why is he writing love letters to my wife?" Her face went pale, then flushed red. "Daniel, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That while I've been breaking my back working 3 jobs to keep this family afloat, you've been falling in love with someone else." My voice kept rising, no matter how hard I tried to control it. "How long, Olivia? How long has this been going on?" "It's not what you think." She reached for the laptop, but I pulled it back. "Michael understands what I'm dealing with at the company," she said, her tone defensive. "He gets my dreams. My stress." "I've supported your dreams for 15 years, I fired back. "I put my own career on hold so I could be the foundation for yours. I worked myself to the bone to keep us afloat while you built your empire." Her voice grew sharper. "You were supportive, yes, but you never felt the passion I felt. Michael and we share something deeper." "We shared something deeper," I snapped. We had 15 years. A child. A life. But I guess that doesn't compare to a business partner who understands quarterly reports. I slammed the laptop shut. That's when 13-year-old Sophie appeared in the doorway, eyes wide and frightened. Why are you yelling? What's happening? Olivia's tone softened instantly. Daddy's just upset about work, honey. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. Over the next few weeks, she moved into the guest room. We tried counseling, but her heart had already left. She said Michael gave her something I never could, someone who matched her professional drive, someone who got excited about the same business challenges. Our conversations turned into nothing but logistics about Sophie's schedule and bills. By the time the divorce dragged through 2013 and 2014, Olivia had primary custody. She kept the Maplewood house and her now-recovering company. I moved into a cramped apartment in Queens. My visits with Sophie were every other weekend, under a court arrangement that felt more like prison visitation. In her teenage mind, I was the one who'd abandoned the family, and Olivia never bothered to correct her. The last day I was in our old house, I packed my clothes and a few personal things while Olivia worked behind her office door and Sophie stayed at a friend's place. Rain tapped against the windows as I carried boxes to my car. Every box felt like another piece of my life I'd never get back. Pulling away, I knew I wasn't just losing a marriage, I was losing my identity as a husband and a father. I didn't see them again until today. The rain at Greenwood Cemetery fell steady and cold, turning Olivia's memorial service into something out of a black and white film. I stood near the chapel doors, my cheap umbrella dripping, watching a crowd of polished mourners in expensive black coats. It had been 10 years since I'd seen Sophie. She stood near the front, the picture of her mother's vision, designer dress, perfect posture, and a cool, distant air. I walked toward her, unsure if she'd welcome me at all. A few people recognized me. Their whispers and sideways glances made it clear I was an unwelcome reminder of Olivia's past. At the casket, I found a brief moment alone. Olivia looked peaceful, almost younger, the stress lines gone from her face. I touched the edge of the coffin and whispered an apology for all the ways we'd failed each other. Look who finally decided to show up. The voice behind me was sharp and dripping with disdain. Dad, the caring father, gracing us with his presence. Sophie stepped closer, her tone carrying just enough volume for everyone nearby to hear. 10 years of silence, and now you show up for the funeral. How thoughtful. I started to speak, but she stepped back as I moved forward, a calculated move. In one smooth motion, her foot hooked my ankle, and I went sprawling onto the chapel's marble floor in front of 100 shocked mourners. Gasps rippled through the room. I heard phones clicking on, recording. My umbrella clattered across the aisle. I pushed myself up slowly, clinging to what dignity I had left, while Sophie watched, her satisfaction impossible to hide. Oops, she said with mock sweetness, loud enough for the crowd. How clumsy of you, Dad. Just like when you stumbled out of our lives. The chapel was quiet, except for the steady tap of rain against the windows and the sound of my daughter's breathing. I brushed off my jacket, straightened my tie, and refused to let her little performance break me completely. I deserve that, I said quietly, meeting her eyes. But your mother deserved better than this spectacle. For a split second, something flickered in Sophie's face. Surprise, maybe even a hint of regret, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by the resentment she'd been holding onto for 10 years. Mr. Walker. The voice broke our standoff. Richard Dawson, the attorney who had called me yesterday, stepped forward looking uncomfortable. We need to discuss your late wife's will. There are significant matters to address. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sophie's confident mask slipped for the first time, confusion taking over. What will? She demanded, looking from him to me. What's he talking about? Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Dawson said, clearing his throat. Both of you should attend the reading tomorrow afternoon. I pushed myself up from the marble floor, ignoring the sting in my scraped palms and the grass stains spreading across my only decent suit. Around us, the air felt heavy, the kind of awkward silence that follows a public scene. Sophie stood over me, satisfaction still radiating from her perfect posture. This had been planned, every move choreographed to humiliate me. The mourners shifted in their seats, some sneaking recordings on their phones, others whispering behind careful hands. "Feel better now?" I asked, brushing dirt from my jacket. Her eyes burned with a decade's worth of anger. "You destroyed our lives," she said, her voice echoing off the chapel walls. "Mom spent years rebuilding after you abandoned us. She died from the stress of carrying this family alone." The words hit harder than the fall. Gasps rose from the crowd, and I caught whispers. "That's the ex-husband, and showing up after all these years. Shameful." "Sophie, please." I kept my voice low, mindful of the setting. "This is your mother's funeral. She deserves better than this." "Don't you dare lecture me about respect," she snapped, heels clicking sharply as she stepped closer. "Where was your respect when you walked out on a 9-year-old girl? When you missed every birthday, every graduation, every moment that mattered?" An older woman in a fur coat approached. "Perhaps you could continue this privately. This isn't appropriate." "Stay out of this," Sophie shot back, her composure cracking. "This man destroyed my family. He has no right to be here." I noticed the funeral director moving toward us, his expression grave. "You want to know why I'm here?" I asked, locking eyes with her. "Because despite everything that went wrong, I loved your mother once. I respected what she built, what she achieved. I came to pay my respects, not to hurt anyone." "Lies," she said, her voice breaking just slightly. "You only cared about yourself. You left us with nothing." "That's enough," the funeral director's voice cut in, firm but calm. "I understand emotions are high, but we can't allow this to continue. Other families are trying to mourn." By now, the chapel was nearly empty, except for a few guests lingering to watch our disaster unfold. Phones were still up, recording for whatever social media judgment was coming next. "I'm sorry," I told the director, then looked to the room. "I apologize for disturbing this service. Olivia deserved better." Sophie opened her mouth to fire back, but the director raised a hand. "Miss, I'll have to ask you to lower your voice or step outside." For the first time since I arrived, she seemed to notice how she looked to others, the stares from her mother's wealthy friends, the judgment on their faces. Color rose in her cheeks. "Fine," she hissed, straightening her dress. "But this isn't over." As the last guests filed out, Dawson approached again, his expression unreadable despite having just witnessed our very public family collapse. His perfectly tailored suit and polished briefcase marked him as a man who handled serious money, exactly the kind of attorney Olivia could afford in her prime. "Mr. Walker," he said, voice measured, "I apologize for the interruption during such a difficult time. However," Dawson said, "your late wife's will requires immediate attention. I need both you and Miss Walker present tomorrow at exactly 2 o'clock." I wiped my stinging palms on my jacket, leaving faint streaks of blood on the cheap fabric. "Mr. Dawson, I appreciate you reaching out, but I honestly don't expect Olivia left me anything worth mentioning. I'll be there if it's legally necessary, but—" "Oh, please." Sophie's laugh sliced through my words like breaking glass. The embarrassment she'd shown minutes ago had already hardened into cruelty. "Dad, you're about to watch me inherit $56 million. Won't that be fun for you?" Dawson's face stayed professionally neutral, but I caught a flicker in his eyes. Surprise, maybe even concern. He slipped me an elegant card with gold lettering. "The reading will take place at our Manhattan offices. The address is there. Both of you are specifically named in the will, so attendance isn't optional." Sophie stepped in close, confidence radiating off her like heat. "This is going to be delicious. 10 years of silence, and now Daddy gets to watch me become one of the wealthiest women in New York." She looked straight at me. "I hope you enjoy watching everything you walked away from go to someone who actually deserved it." Around us, Mourners climbed into sleek black cars, no doubt whispering about the drama they'd just witnessed. Rain kept falling, turning the cemetery paths into muddy streams. "Miss Walker," Dawson said carefully, "I should mention, wills can have unexpected provisions. It's best not to make assumptions." "Oh, please." Sophie waved him off. "Mom and I went over her estate plans in detail. I know exactly what's coming." She turned that same smug look on me. "The company, the houses, the investments, all mine. You might get a token gesture. Maybe enough for a nice dinner." I felt drained, worn down by the whole impossible day. "Sophie, I didn't come here expecting anything. I came to pay my respects to your mother." "Lies." She began pacing, her heels clicking against the marble like a clock counting down. "Mom would never give you everything. She built that company herself while you sat in your pathetic apartment doing nothing." Dawson's voice was calm but firm. "We have security footage of your mother recording her final testament just 3 months ago. She was alone, lucid, and very clear about her wishes. The will went through 3 separate legal reviews. Then she was coerced, blackmailed. Someone got to her." Sophie's polished mask had completely fallen, revealing the entitled child underneath. "This is my inheritance, my company, my money." I finally found my voice. "If this is legitimate, and it seems it is, then your mother had her reasons. She left you a message explaining." "I don't want her explanations," she shouted, turning on me again. "I want what's mine. I worked with her. I understood the business. You've never even stepped foot in a boardroom." "Your mother specifically requested that Daniel learn the company's operations," Dawson cut in smoothly. "She arranged a full transition period with the existing management team." It began to settle over me. This wasn't just a windfall. It was responsibility. For hundreds of employees. For continuing a vision I didn't fully understand yet. "This won't stand," Sophie said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I'll have a lawsuit filed by tomorrow. I'll hire the best lawyers in New York. I'll drag this through the press if I have to." She grabbed her purse, paused at the door, and looked back with a cold smile. "Enjoy your moment, Dad. It won't last. By the time I'm done, you'll be lucky to keep that apartment in Queens." The door slammed, and the echo seemed to linger in the room long after she was gone. Dawson and I sat in silence for a while, the wreckage of my family hanging between us. Finally, he said, "Mr. Walker, I think you need to understand exactly what you've inherited." 2 weeks later, I stood inside the gleaming headquarters of Martinez Walker Technologies, still trying to absorb the scale of what Olivia had built. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, and the quiet hum of activity filled the open space. "Your ex-wife was remarkable," said Sarah Lewis, the company's chief operating officer, no relation to Michael, despite the shared last name. "She completely changed the game for remote project management," Sarah said as we walked through the R&D floor. "We've got Fortune 500 clients on 3 continents." The scale was staggering: 230 employees, 50 million in annual revenue, and projections to double that within 5 years. Olivia hadn't just succeeded, she'd built something that mattered. Something that gave people jobs and solved real problems. "She talked about you sometimes," Sarah added quietly as we passed a glass-walled conference room. "Especially toward the end. She said you were the foundation that let her dream big." Every day in the office revealed something new about Olivia's vision. Scholarships for underprivileged students in tech. 6 months of paid family leave. Profit sharing for every employee. It was exactly the kind of workplace she described back when we were just 2 broke college kids sitting in a campus cafe. Meanwhile, Sophie's legal challenge pushed forward exactly as I expected, with expensive lawyers and aggressive filings. Her team claimed undue influence, mental incapacity, fraud. Dawson built our defense like a fortress. Video of Olivia recording her will, alone and lucid. Medical records showing her sharp mind right to the end. Proof she'd been planning the distribution for over a year. The hearing was set for a gray morning that felt just as heavy as my mood. Sophie arrived with 3 attorneys whose tailored suits probably cost more than my first car. "Your Honor," her lead lawyer began, "we contend that Daniel Walker manipulated a dying woman through promises of reconciliation, exploiting her guilt about their failed marriage." It stung, mostly because a part of me wished it were true. I would have traded every cent for one honest, unguarded conversation with Olivia about the ways we'd gone wrong. Dawson's reply was precise and crushing. He laid out the video, the medical files, the phone records showing no contact. "Mr. Walker was not informed of these provisions until after Mrs. Walker's passing," he said, sliding a thick folder toward the bench. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed everything carefully. 2 hours later, she ruled without hesitation, "The petition is denied. The will is valid, executed with clear intent and proper procedure." I watched Sophie's face crumble as her lawyers packed up their files. She had bet almost everything on this challenge, and lost. As we walked out of the courthouse, I felt, not triumphant, just tired. Justice might have been served, but nothing could stitch our family back together. A month later, my phone rang in the stillness of my Queens apartment, the same one that didn't feel so cramped now that I knew what I had at my disposal. I'd been flipping through quarterly reports, still amazed at the empire Olivia had trusted me to lead. "Dad." The voice was different. Softer. Uncertain. "It's Sophie. Could we talk?" It had been a month of silence since the ruling. Dawson had mentioned she'd burned through most of her inheritance on legal fees, leaving barely enough for a security deposit. "Of course," I said carefully, settling into my old recliner. "What's on your mind?" "I was wrong," she blurted. "About you. About the will. About Mom. I've had time to think, and I realize I was just hurt. And scared." The tone was familiar, the same calculated sweetness she'd used as a kid when she wanted a later curfew. "I'm listening. I want to make things right. I want us to be a family again." Her voice caught perfectly on family. "I know I said awful things. I was grieving. I was confused. I stayed quiet. I need your help, Dad." The vulnerability cracked, and desperation slipped through. "I lost my job after the lawsuit went public. My apartment applications keep getting rejected. I'm running out of money, and I don't know what to do." And there it was, the real reason. In the weeks I'd been learning the ropes at the company, I'd also been studying Olivia's notes on leadership and motivation. I could see the pattern here as clearly as any HR case study. "I understand you're struggling," I said gently. "But before we talk about help, we need to set some ground rules." "Anything," she said quickly. "I'll do anything to fix this relationship." First, I told her, you need to get a job. Not an executive position. Not management. An entry-level job, where you actually learn what it means to earn your way. Silence stretched across the line. "Dad, I have an MBA. I worked at Mom's company for 3 years. Working for your mother isn't the same as building something yourself," I told her. "Olivia wanted you to understand responsibility, and that starts with earning your own way. But I could help you run the company. I know the systems, the clients. Maybe, eventually," I said. "But first, you prove you can succeed without family money or connections. You find work. You pay your own rent. You build your own life. That's not fair." Her voice tightened, the mask slipping. "I shouldn't have to start over like some college grad. Your mother started over plenty of times. She waited tables to pay for college. She took out loans for her first business. She earned everything she achieved. This is punishment, isn't it? You're enjoying this. No, Sophie. This is education. The same lesson your mother tried to give you, but you were too comfortable to take it in." I let the words sit. "If you want a relationship with me, it starts with you proving you can stand on your own. And if I do, if I take some low-level job and scrape to pay rent, then what?" Then we talk again. We rebuild trust. We see if you can become the woman your mother believed you could be. Another long pause. When she spoke again, the sharpness was gone, replaced by something that might have been real fear. I don't know how to do this. I've never been without money, without connections, without someone taking care of me. Then it's time you learned, I said gently. Your mother left you enough to make a fresh start. Use it wisely. Dad, do you think she'd be proud of me if I did this? For the first time in our call, I heard the lost little girl under the polished adult exterior. I think she'd be proud of you for trying. That's all she ever wanted, for you to try building something yourself. When the call ended, I sat in my Queens apartment, not the same man who'd answered Dawson's phone call 2 months earlier. I now controlled more wealth than I'd ever imagined, but that wasn't the real change. Olivia had handed me more than her company and her assets. She'd handed me the responsibility of finishing our daughter's education. Not in business. Not in technology. But in character. Whether Sophie chose to learn was entirely up to her. The phone was silent. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace with whatever came next.